All right, I'm pleased to be joined by Kyle Hoffman of the Pickle Podcast to talk or to discuss some UFC 259 talk. How's it going, Kyle?
It's going great, man. I am super excited for the fights coming up here on Saturday. How are you feeling about it so far?
I'm feeling pretty excited. This is a really big fight, and the card is pretty stacked. It's kind of crazy how Amanda Nunes most of the time would be a main event, and she's a co-main event. So that's
Right, and
that's
that
how
actually,
stacked this is.
this actually is piecing up to be one of the greatest cards of the year. Some people are saying it's one of the greatest cards of all time. I don't think so, but I think it's going to be up there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So the first question I got for you, who win? Or actually, we'll start with the first fight here: Thiago Santos versus Alexander Rakic. Who wins this fight, and how many rounds does it last?
Well, I think Rakic wins this fight. He'll be throwing a lot of super brutal leg kicks, as you've seen with him in previous matches. He's just cutting the legs out of people and sending them to the floor. He has a lot of dynamic upper body strength that I don't think Santos has. They kind of match up well as far as their skill set, but fighting John Jones, I think, took a lot out of Santos, and I don't think he's going to be the same fighter. And I think Rakic is really hungry. I think that he's actually eyeing some sort of a title shot in the near future. I think Rakic will come ready to take it against Santos, and I don't think Santos is going to be quite ready for an up and comer with that wide of a skill set. I think that Rakic definitely takes it in early rounds. So,
who do you like in this matchup?
One of the things I like about this matchup is Santos is actually coming off a loss, and Rakic is coming off a win. Rakic also has a reach and height advantage, and I think a 4 to 6 inch kicking advantage. So, like I said, his massive kicking advantage is going to work well against Santos. He does flying knees. He's very quick. So it'll be interesting to see if Santos's veteran spirit gets him through this fight, especially because Rakic is coming for that title shot, like I said.
All right, that makes a lot of sense here. On to the next one. If Santos wins, who would be his next fight?
To be honest, I think Glover Teixeira deserves a shot at the number one ranking. It would be a good veteran matchup, I think, to have Santos against Teixeira. I could see it as a fight night headliner in the near future, not necessarily a UFC main card matchup, but I can see it as a fight night headliner. Or he could even fight Blachowicz if Blachowicz loses to Adesanya on Saturday night.
All right, let's go on to the next fight here: Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober. Who do you like in this fight?
My thoughts are Makhachev is facing his first ranked opponent in the UFC, and Dana White traditionally likes to move these guys on a little bit slowly when they're coming in, especially a talented fighter like Makhachev. He will be ready to make a statement against Drew Dober on Saturday night. Dober was repeatedly taken down by Beneil Dariush when they faced each other last fall, and I don't think he's going to be able to withstand the ground pressure of Makhachev. Dober is far less well-rounded fighter than Makhachev in this match, JJ, and I just don't see it lasting very long.
All right. How many rounds does this fight last?
I could see it going 1 to 2 rounds, but it may go the distance. If he's not able to put Dober out, it might go the distance. Either way, it's going to be a Khabib-like performance from him on Saturday night.
Speaking of Khabib, with Makhachev being Nurmagomedov's buddy, could you see him being the next Khabib? Because, of course, he is a lightweight as well. So,
right. Yeah, I don't see him or anyone in the near future being the next Khabib, quote unquote. But I do see him being a force in the lightweight division now that he's getting ranked opponents. I mean, maybe in a year or two from now, he might be at that level where we can start talking about him, putting him in the same category as Khabib. But Khabib, like is just a whole nother animal. It doesn't hurt that he trains with Khabib on a daily basis and that they're really good friends. But I don't think he's quite there yet to be in the same category as Khabib. However, I think he is going to make waves, and he'll probably go on a winning streak if he wins this fight tonight.
All right. If Makhachev wins, who would be his next fight?
I think Michael Chandler seems to be a good matchup with Makhachev. I can see Dana White making that fight happen, even though Chandler seems to be a little bit picky about his fights. I think it'd be a nice matchup because they both have sort of the same skill set. Makhachev being that ground and pound fighter that's going to put you in a submission or just beat you all night long. And Michael Chandler is just a physical specimen who has all the right moves, super quick. That would be an interesting matchup, and that would be a great fight to watch. I'd love to see that fight.
You were talking about Michael Chandler. It seems like, it seems like he is kind of a picky fighter, but it seems like he wants to fight either McGregor or, Justin Gaethje next. Do you think there is a chance that he fights those guys over a Makhachev or?
I could see him getting a fight over Makhachev against Justin Gaethje. Um, I think he would match up well against Gaethje, considering what Khabib was able to do against Justin Gaethje. So I think Dana White would love that fight. It's not outside the realm of possibility, JJ.
All right. Before we move on to the next fight, it seems like, we'll just stick with the lightweight division. It seems like Dustin Poirier is probably going to get a championship fight here very soon. Do you think Charles Oliveira would be his next opponent?
I think he probably will be his next opponent. It's been a while since Dustin Poirier, I think, fought a Brazilian. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup if they do fight each other. Poirier being that strong-handed fighter with the heavy punches, and Oliveira being that ground and pound fighter who can also, he's also a black belt. I believe he's also a Muay Thai champion, but who isn't a Muay Thai champion at this point? I think that could be a great fight. I actually see Dustin Poirier probably winning that fight. I don't think Oliveira would be able to do to him on the ground what he's done to other opponents. I think Dustin Poirier is a heavy fighter, and I don't think he's going to be able to roll around with Dustin Poirier and dominate like he has before. I think Dustin Poirier has an answer for that, and I see Dustin Poirier probably winning that fight, but I see it being a great fight if they do take that matchup.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. I'm pretty pumped up with Poirier's next fight, and he was on Joe Rogan recently, and he kind of mentioned that he would want Charles Oliveira, and he believes that he should be the next opponent.
He's definitely deserving of it.
Yeah, I mean, especially what Oliveira did to Ferguson in his last fight, which was pretty crazy.
Which was really crazy. You are right about that.
Let's go on to the next fight. Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. What's your predictions for this fight?
Sterling, it's interesting, this fight, because Sterling traditionally does better against quote unquote tough matchups than he does facing an opponent that he's already underestimated. That's sort of the psychology that I've noticed out of Sterling. Sterling's going to come ready for this fight, and his talent and quickness, I think, is going to win a decision, and I think it's going to earn him the bantamweight title. I think Jan is probably maybe underestimating Sterling a little bit. From what I've seen from Sterling, he's completely dynamic in the way he fights, and I think that he's going to go into this fight knowing that he's going to have a challenge, and it's going to give him the advantage in that fight psychologically.
All right. How long? Well, actually, let's just skip that one, or no, we'll start with that one. How long does this fight last?
I could definitely see the fight going the distance, but I can also see Sterling getting the TKO. I don't think he's going to completely put his opponent out, but I can see Sterling winning by TKO. If he doesn't, I can see it going the distance.
Is there anybody else in the bantamweight division that could take down Jan or Sterling?
I've seen a lot of good things from Corey Sandhagen. I think that maybe sometimes he has bad nights, but I think Corey Sandhagen definitely has the talent to do it. Rafael dos Santos definitely might deserve a shot, or even Cody Garbrandt. All these guys match up well against these two. I like the competitiveness of this division. I would especially like to see Cody Garbrandt get in there and make waves again. I love watching him fight.
All right. Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson. This doesn't really seem like much of a fight. Assuming Nunes wins, how long do you think this fight lasts?
Well, not long, because Megan Anderson relies on her ground and pound to get the job done in most fights. And I think Amanda Nunes might even be more superior than her on the ground. Nunes might not be able to head kick Megan Anderson like she likes to do because of her height and the threat of a takedown, but she will definitely piece her up in early rounds. And I don't see this lasting past the first round, JJ.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. I don't think there's really anybody that can match up right now with Amanda Nunes, which brings me to my next question. We were talking about this earlier yesterday. Is there a chance that Ronda Rousey maybe comes back and fights Nunes?
Funny you should say that. My answer is going to be no, JJ. Ronda Rousey should probably protect her face at all costs, just for the sole sake of her pro wrestling career. As you know, she has a fully sustainable ranch, and I just don't think her fighting style is sustainable at this point. A lot of people in that division are preparing for Amanda Nunes becoming better strikers, and I just think that her style is outdated, and wouldn't be able to come back and compete with Nunes, let alone a lot of people in that division, even though she has great wrestling.
Does Nunes seems like she is the greatest female fighter of all time. Is there anybody in MMA history or just the UFC that even comes close to her?
Just as far as females are speaking, I think had Chris Cyborg been younger during the Nunes fight, it would have been a more interesting fight. But I don't think anybody comes close to Nunes in what she's been able to do. She's the best in the world, best female fighter there is. If you're talking about comparing her pound per pound against all male fighters, um, she's almost like a young John Jones at this point. She's just dominating every single fight. We know what to expect from her, and we know what to expect from John Jones at this fight too. At this point too.
So pretty much like Amanda Nunes is like the Tiger Woods of the UFC, pretty much, right? For females.
Pretty much, only minus. And I just wanted to also say that it stinks that Tiger Woods did get into that car accident too. I want to wish him well in the safe recovery. I hope that he's able to come back too. So,
yeah, prayers out to Tiger, and hopefully he gets better. It feels like he's getting better now, and just prayers for his family, especially as well. So
definitely, he's got the best doctors in the world, so I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. Who will be the next for both fighters, assuming Nunes gets this one?
Well, I think Megan Anderson, after she loses this fight, is probably going to end up fighting someone like Holly Holm. Nunes could end up fighting Jermaine Durandamy again. Remember, those two went 5 rounds the last time they fought. So I can see, a card headliner for those two again. I think a rematch is totally possible between those two, considering there isn't really anybody else in that division that's going to go up against Nunes and have a chance.
All right, let's get to the main event. Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya. Who comes up on top, and how long does it last?
Well, Adesanya is making a huge risk coming up in weight, especially against someone with the power that Blachowicz has. Adesanya is going to be running at times during this fight in order to keep his game plan. He did say that he was going to use his speed, so he plans on using his speed to stay away from Jan Blachowicz. I see Jan taking this fight in later rounds because I don't think Adesanya is going to be able to finish Blachowicz. If either Adesanya gets if Adesanya gets tied up with Blachowicz like Luke Rockhold did during this fight, he's going to be in big trouble. The champion has to stay away from Jan Blachowicz if he wants to get this double belt. This fight's either going to go 5 rounds to Adesanya, or it's going to be a Blachowicz knockout. So that's how I see that going.
All right. What do both fighters need to do in order to take the belt?
And, Adesanya needs to keep his distance and lure Blachowicz in with that straightforward style and win with his counter striking. Oftentimes you see Blachowicz take a 1-2 punch inside and then follow up with a head kick or a body kick, which he's really good at. Adesanya won't be able to chase, or Adesanya won't chase Jan in this fight. Blachowicz needs to do what he does best, throw some kick combos after his initial attacks. He should also try and get Adesanya against the cage where he can be absolutely lethal. Like I said, Adesanya is not going to want to get close to Blachowicz in this fight for more than a split second. He may be running at times, but I do see Jan winning this fight.
You said earlier that Adesanya is taking a risk moving up to fight Blachowicz. Was he smart to take this fight?
Israel Adesanya, all credit given to him. He's smart in anything he does, right? So he can always lose this fight, and people are still going to give him the benefit of the doubt that it was a difficult move to move up in weight. He really has nothing to lose in this fight. He's already dominated most of his opponents. Losing to Blachowicz is not going to be a gash on his record. So look for Israel Adesanya to be relaxed on Saturday night, maybe even too relaxed for Jan Blachowicz.
Okay. If Blachowicz wins this fight, who would be his next fight, and vice versa for Adesanya?
Well, we'll start with Adesanya. I think that the trend in that division, when people tend to move up or down, they tend to hold that division in a hostage situation. I honestly could see Adesanya moving back down to middleweight and fighting Jared Cannonier or possibly even Marvin Vettori. If you remember, Marvin Vettori actually gave Adesanya one of the best contests of his life and actually gave him a lot of problems, especially on the ground, was able to control him. I think Costa and Whitaker will happen at some point too in that division, but I don't see either of them facing Adesanya in the near future. If he stays at light heavyweight, he could possibly fight Santos or Reyes as well.
All right, let's step away from UFC 259 for just a sec. But Francis Ngannou takes down Miocic at UFC 260. Does he end up fighting John Jones?
I think that would be great. But they'll have to pay John Jones a lot of money. Like we've talked about before, I don't think John Jones traditionally gets a big draw in the UFC. He's not that kind of guy. because people know what to expect from him. But Dana White could make this happen based off the hype of that matchup. Just think about Ngannou versus Jones, how much excitement that could drum up in the UFC and MMA community. That would be a moneymaker fight. It might even be the highest grossing pay-per-view of all time if we were able to get Ngannou and Jones in the same ring before they're past their prime. Jones is getting there. He's getting up in age, and Ngannou is really coming into his own. I think it's a fight that Dana White has to make at some point.
Yeah, you just mentioned it actually. You said John Jones isn't a big moneymaker just by himself, even though he's one of the biggest UFC fighter, one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. Why do you think that is?
Well, we know what to expect from Jones at this point. I don't think it has as much to do with his reputation as it does for the fact that John Jones is going to come out and do the same thing he always does against all these fighters. Dominic Reyes came close to maybe winning a decision against Jones, but that 5th round, he came back and showed what he does. So I don't think people are looking for any surprises from Jones. I think that's why he doesn't get a huge draw. But like I said, if he fights someone like Francis Ngannou, that could be a huge draw for the UFC. Likewise, if he faced someone like Cyril Gane, who is really coming on strong at this point, has a lot of hype behind him, that would not even be as big of a draw as Ngannou versus Jones. So I can see Cyril Gane getting a shot against John Jones at some point before he goes on to fight Ngannou.
Okay. Last but not least, what is your dream fight in the future for the UFC?
Well, I think John Jones versus Francis Ngannou is definitely number one. I would also love to see Adesanya versus John Jones at light heavyweight or something like that. But Cyril Gane versus John Jones is also an interesting one. Remember, Cyril Gane just dominated Jairzinho Rozenstruik in amazing fashion. Really, Rozenstruik was no threat for him in that match, and Ngannou was able to take out Rozenstruik pretty early. So if Cyril Gane can improve just a little bit in his game, at some point, I think he could possibly even fight Ngannou, since they are massive individuals.
All right. I don't think I have any other questions on the UFC or on UFC 259. Of course, you're the host of the Pickle podcast. Can you explain, or actually, can you tell us more about your latest episode from the Pickle podcast?
Well, our latest episode is with the Young Creatives. They're a film production company in town, 2 young 25-year-old guys who just won a London Film Festival award for Best Short Film for their film Wake Up. You can see links to their video and their film on the Pickle Podcast page, as well as Young Creatives on Facebook. And this coming Saturday, not this Saturday, but the one after next, we have local popular comedian Mitch Banks coming on to do what he does best and make us all laugh super hard. So we're really excited to have Mitch Banks on. Andrew Jones is really excited to have Mitch on. He's done a lot of comedy with Mitch. So it's going to be a great time. And we're going to have that live on Facebook and YouTube next Tuesday night.
Okay. Guys, don't forget to check out his channel, subscribe, comment, leave a like, and hit the bell for notifications. All right. Thanks for coming on, Kyle.
Thanks as always, JJ. I had a great time.
Yep. We always love talking about UFC with you. So it's been a pleasure. And once again, thanks for coming on, and have a great day.
You too, buddy. We'll see you Saturday night.
Yep. Sounds good.